in this session. This is Leire Gorroño, who is lecturer and researcher at the Mondragon University. She obtained her PhD in energy planning at Aalborg University, and before that she obtained a master in sustainable energy planning and management. And her expertise is and research interests are governance solutions for the energy transition. So Leire, you already present. That was great. So please.
Yeah, thank you, Mats. I'm trying to put it on full screen.
Yes.
Okay, there we go. So for today, I'm presenting a study that I conducted together with Jacqueline, one of the previous speakers in this session as well. And this is about getting fair institutional conditions for district heating consumers, and it brings some insights from Denmark and Sweden. So the reason why we work with district heating is because it is expected to have a lot of benefits for the decarbonization of the energy system, both when it comes to integrating renewable energies, also using heat sources that would otherwise be difficult to use, increasing efficiency, and also when implemented in targeted locations, it could lead to lower socioeconomic costs of future energy systems. It can also have several benefits for consumers, like improved indoor environments, lower risk of accidents, and less noise, and so on. So it's a technology that has a lot of potential benefits. But what we see is that even if Nordic and Baltic countries have reached some high levels of implementation of district heating, there are still large untapped installation potentials in the EU. We also see that there are several examples of poor practices by some district heating companies in different countries. And this can be things like unreasonably high prices, too high or low indoor temperatures, it can be poor customer service, and so on. So there is a risk that this will have a negative influence on consumer adoption of district heating. So if we want to really promote district heating adoption, we think that it would be very important or even essential that we develop and implement institutional conditions that safeguard district heating consumers' interests and rights. But there is quite some confusion still on how we can do this and how we can develop institutional conditions that are suitable for the particularities of district heating systems, which, as we know, are local, vertically integrated natural monopolies. Basically, what this means is that district heating consumers that are not satisfied with their district heating supplier cannot choose a different supplier. They can only choose to invest in a different heating solution. And that means that the customer lock-in effect is bigger with this technology than with other heating solutions. So what we did for our study is to review the institutional conditions implemented in Denmark and Sweden from the start of district heating until the present. And we also analyzed why different institutional configurations have managed or failed to promote fair conditions for district heating consumers. And it's this second part which is new compared to what we can already find in the literature. So why Denmark and Sweden? Well, we know that these two countries have quite big shares of district heating implemented already. These are countries that very often are used as benchmark or examples of good practice. And at the same time, they are Nordic countries that are at the most different between them, because Denmark has the highest share of locally and owned district heating owned by consumers, whereas Sweden has the highest share of commercially owned amongst the Nordic countries. And then Denmark has the one with the strictest district heating regulation with non-profit price regulation, connection requirements, and so on, whereas Sweden has a soft district heating regulation with no price regulation. So this made these two countries very interesting for us for a first step into this type of analysis. So what we did was to collect data from a structured literature review, some expert interviews and other data sources like legal documents or archival records and so on. And we did a thematic analysis of the data following the code book that was based on two analytical frameworks. The first one is the consumer power on natural monopolies that states that consumer power has 4 dimensions: ownership power, state regulative power, buying power, and communicative power. And the other analytical framework is based on parameters to evaluate the fairness of conditions for district heating consumers with regards to product quality, customer relation quality, and heat prices. But for today, I will only present the results related to heat prices as they are the most relevant for the findings we got. So for our analysis, we figured out that we could divide the institutional conditions for Denmark in 3 different periods. An initial one where there is no district heating regulation, then the one after late 70s where there is district heating regulation and very strict regulation actually, and then a last period where the regulation is a little softer. We can also see how commercial companies enter the game. And maybe something else to highlight from this period is that there is an increase in the communicative power that comes also from changes and improvements in the district heating regulation. So for the same periods, we tried to identify the different issues that happened in relation to district heating prices. And what we see here is that there are some policy-induced high district heating prices in the last 2 periods. There were also issues with very high prices in commercially owned district heating companies. This is something we can relate to lower consumer power or lower ownership power of consumers. It's also difficult for regulatory authorities to identify all possible cases of law infringements. And then we find quite a hot discussion in the last years about the district heating regulation and if that's enough to actually promote cost efficiency in district heating companies with different understandings of the issue and also different understanding of what good solutions could be. And also things related to the tariff structures and if these are discouraging energy conservations in buildings. So what we found for Sweden is that Sweden started with district heating being regulated when this was owned by the local municipal companies. Then there was a period of liberalization and reorganization, which is related to the liberalization of the electricity market or the electricity sector, where there was no price regulation any longer for the district heating companies that were owned by the municipalities. There were also many systems that were sold to private companies. And finally, we have again a period where there is some regulation, a soft regulation, that has focused a lot in increasing the buying power of consumers and increasing the communicative power. So again, we see some similar issues with significant increases in district heating prices in some district heating companies in this liberalization and reorganization period. There is still some debate going on whether district heating should be allowed to make profit or not, but that was of course more important debate some time ago for the second period. We have also seen that commercially and state-owned district heating companies tend to have higher district heating prices than locally owned municipal district heating companies. And again, some issues with how the district heating bills are, their complexity and tariff structures and so on. So how we can summarize our results is that despite there are quite some differences in regulations between Denmark and Sweden, Both countries have high levels of local and inclusive ownership, and this can be organized as local municipal companies, or in the case of Denmark, also as local consumer cooperatives. There is quite a lot of district heating companies that apply the cost-based pricing principle. In Denmark, this is mandatory, but in Sweden, 63% of municipal companies do this on a voluntary basis. And there is also high levels of consumer communication power in both countries, not only because of the publication of district heating prices and other data that allow for comparative evaluations, but also because it's common to make use of media to report issues related to district heating and have a debate there and so on. So what we could conclude is that neither the free market approach that has been used in Sweden, neither the strict regulation are effective on their own. There is a need for high levels of ownership and high levels of communication, which are both facilitated when we have some local and inclusive ownership models. So, of course, we understand that the institutional conditions and other factors, which could even be the maturity of the sector, are different in other countries. So we do not expect that our results are directly transferable to other countries. And there will be a need for further studies, but we also think that it shows something very interesting that could be analyzed in other countries as well, with these things related to consumers' communicative power and ownership power. So this study is already published, so you can find more details in this article, which is open access. And you are, of course, also welcome to contact either Jacqueline or me if you would like to discuss it further. So, thank you.